Okay, we're ready.
So I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I think we have a quorum. So roll call. I see Lexi is on Zoom.
Yeah.
Dr. Tina Clark Scott is on Zoom. I see. I don't recognize the gentleman in the.
I'm Paul Dietrich.
Hi, Paul. How are you doing? We're going to
Good.
introduce you here in a second.
Okay,
Mr. Felder, how are you?
excellent. Thank you for asking.
And our council liaison, Emerson Smith, Councilman Smith, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Awesome. And Chief Curtis. And I'm assuming Erin is in the corner over there and I can't see her.
Erin's hiding over there.
So I'd like to go ahead and move to review and approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Do I have any corrections? I do have one. On agenda item 3, the second motion was by Centron Felder, F-E-L-D-E-R. His last name was spelled incorrectly in the minutes. It was correct in the roll call, but not in that section, Aaron. So go ahead and correct that spelling on Centron's name.
Okay, it's done.
Okay, any other corrections? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as corrected? Centron introduce the motion. Do I have a second? Who wants a second? Lexi?
I'll second it.
Lexi seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose the same. Minutes are approved.
Sorry, excuse me, Kevin, just so if you hadn't noticed, Reverend Hayes is on as well now.
Oh, okay, Reverend Hayes, welcome. I am not the sharpest tack in the toolbox tonight because my wife and I both tested positive with COVID. So we're not feeling very well. So but we're hanging in there. It's really like a really bad cold at this point. So hopefully that's all it becomes. So next item on the agenda is a welcome of our new members. And our first one I'd like to welcome is Paul Dietrich, and he's our boards and commission business owner leader. And I am happy to report that after we introduce Sloan, who will join us in August, we are full. All of our members are present, and we are a full board now. So I want to clap about that. So Paul, would you like to introduce yourself to the board members and to those that are attending the meeting from the community?
Okay.
Tell us about yourself and why you are interested in our work. I think I know after reading your bio,
Yeah.
but I would love to hear it from you.
Well, my wife and I have lived here in Webster for about 35 years. We raised 2 sons here, and we have 2 grandchildren now. They live nearby Maplewood. I'm a psychologist by training, clinical psychologist by training. The last 20 years, I've worked as a police psychologist. So I do a lot of pre-employment and fitness for duty evaluations for a variety of police departments in the area. I've, in the past, I'm semi-retired now, so I only work part-time. In the past, I've taught at the St. Louis County Municipal Police Academy and the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Academy. And so I wanted to, now, especially since I'm semi-retired, I have a little bit more time available. I wanted to do something, to work somehow, do some kind of public service, for Webster Groves. And this seemed to be something that, an area that I might actually have something to contribute, something worthwhile to contribute. So that's basically my story.
Well, welcome. And yes, your skill set is very much needed in our current environment. And I know Katie is thrilled. She's a social worker. And so she comes from a similar background. But have you taught any of the current Webster Groves police officers?
Well, if they attended the St. Louis County and Municipal Police Academy, I may have taught a class on stress management to them. I don't know.
Dale, do you know if that's possibly the case?
I do not, excuse me, I do not. We contract with St. Louis County, and
Okay.
for the 20+ years that I've been here, I've been to a couple things at the academy, but I wouldn't have been at one of the stress ones. So when the officers go, I don't really know who the instructors are.
Okay. So it's possible.
It's
Yeah,
possible.
it's possible. So our new board member, our newest, welcome again, welcome, and we're very much excited that you're with us, and will contribute to all the work that we have yet to do. We've accomplished some, but we want to accomplish more. So with your help, we can do that. The other is Sloan Carfield, which is, he's our student representative. Thank you so much, Dr. Scott, for finding Sloan and bringing them to us. I think that it will be a wonderful thing. And Sloan sent an email out requesting that they not join the board until August and attend the first meeting in August, because they have exams this week. And then they're going to a cultural leadership group for the month of June, and then a family vacation in July. So based on all that, they thought it was a good idea to start with a new academic year, which will begin in August. So Sloan intends on attending, and has on the calendar already, the August meeting. And at that point, I'll have Sloan introduce them so that we can get to know Sloan a little bit better at that time. So
Kevin, if I can, just real briefly, we will also have a Western University student as a member in the very near future. I'm not sure, maybe the next meeting or the one following, probably.
Okay,
I
so
don't
we're
know.
not quite full yet. I forgot about the fact that we're going to have a Webster University student. So that's good. I guess Jillian and did that team help find someone, or?
No, that would be Dr. Dr. Grosh was in contact with Webster U, and the chancellor or someone down there found the student.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, Scott is actually out of town on vacation, so that's why he's not able to join us. So, and the last but not least, I would like for Emerson to introduce himself as our new city council liaison. As you know, since the beginning, Mayor Welch served in that capacity, but I would like to welcome Emerson and have him introduce himself, even though a lot of folks know him already, and why you're interested in really participating in our work.
Well, my name is Emerson Smith. I'm on the city council. Everybody knows. I'm interested in this particular committee because it was brand new in its existence. It's been quite a while since the city has made a forward step in trying to bridge a relationship with the police and the community. And I thought it'd be important to continue that after Mayor Welch retired from being mayor. to step in that role and do what I can. I think some of the issues or some of the pressing items, and hopefully I'll be able to lend an ear or a voice to, to help the PCB move on to accomplish the goals that it was set out to do. So I do believe that the first set of policies or statutes that was created was very restrictive. And I think it really kind of bound the PCB from doing what they could do. But I think the recent changes that just was made, I think you'll have more, not necessarily freedom, but you have a better scope of getting some things really accomplished. And consider me as your communication voice to the council, and from the council to the PCB and the PCB to the council. So feel free to use me in whatever capacity that you need to hopefully strengthen the board and get it rolling.
Yeah, and also not only to the council, Emerson, but also to the community at large, and your connections within the community. I think it's important. I mean, you've already helped us to meet with the North Webster Coalition. And so we appreciate all of that, and that's what we're all about, is trying to meet with as many community members as we possibly can, as well as try to develop some kind of plan to improve the communication between the police department and the community, so that it's really kind of a joint participation of policing. And we so need that. I mean, the tragic event that just happened in Texas today points out that it's just tragic. That, I mean, it's tragic when anyone gets killed, but children, young children, and a teacher, just out of nowhere. So I think it's important for us to communicate with the Webster Groves Police Department, for them to communicate with the community of how they are prepared in the ungodly, occurrence, if that would ever happen here. And we just pray that it would never happen here, but are we prepared for that? In this community, because you can never be over prepared, in my opinion. So,
but Kevin, I have one more statement. I just want to make sure that the members of the PCB know my role as liaison is not to needlessly interfere with your meeting. I'm here to answer questions or add substance to it when asked. So I'm not quiet because I want to be quiet. I'm quiet because I'm here as a liaison role.
Well, the other thing, Emerson, is if we ever step out of line, you need not to be quiet. Yeah, because we're all new to this. Essentially, I mean, this is my my third year in the term. In fact, my term has expired technically, but which is another whole new question that I need to talk to Chief Curtis about. But we want to make sure that you give us good advice as well, as to whether or not we're moving in a direction that was charged by the city council, because our charges from the city council.
Well, I've had the opportunity of working with Emerson a little bit, and I've never known him to be quiet.
So what I'd like to do is go on to the next item on the agenda, is the report from Lexi on the meeting with the North Webster Coalition, which I also attended. And so Lexi, you want to kind of go through what occurred there?
Sure. We had about 15 minutes where we introduced ourselves to the North Webster Neighborhood Coalition.
I'm sorry, Pastor Hayes was there too. So yeah.
Yes, he was indeed.
Yeah.
And in fact, he kicked us off by introducing the group.
Yes.
And then Kevin stood up and we had prepared a little two-sided sheet that picked some highlights from the new ordinance because we thought it was important that the community be aware of the purpose and scope of the PCEB. And so he read the purpose component, and then at the end, there was the duties. And then we had some open-ended questions in hopes of eliciting some input, but also just to open the door for future conversation. And y'all are gonna correct me if I miss anything here, but one of the questions that we had is what has the PCEB recommended to the police department that has been implemented? And I didn't know if it was, sorry, someone coming by the house, my dog's barking. Something that has been implemented since PCEB was around is the license plate readers. And so I mentioned that those had been discontinued or were in the process of, and it was interesting to me that one of the residents there said, well, that seems like it's a good thing. Wouldn't you want to have those license plate readers? And the concern that he was representing, I think, was that he felt people from outside of his immediate community were coming in and causing mischief. And perhaps to his mind, that license plate reader might have identified people that maybe shouldn't have been there. So it was certainly an occasion where I thought, boy, I wish I was better versed on exactly what kinds of vehicles get stopped for that reason. And, you know, was it really keeping dangerous people off the streets of Webster? Or was it more people that forgot to pay a parking ticket or other things that might have ended up on that list? So that was a question that I didn't feel like we fully answered. And maybe that would be something that we could come back with some community communication at some point about it. Then we talked just more generally, it was about public safety and not necessarily policing, but incidences either currently or in the past where racism does exist in Webster Groves, and we need to be aware of it. And in fact, Emerson relayed a story where he and his daughters had been unfairly scrutinized in a store. And so I thought it was a good icebreaker with the Neighborhood Coalition, and I hope that we can find some other ways to continue to reach out to those groups to let them know that we're interested in hearing their thoughts about how to improve public safety and improve engagement with the police. I did not receive any additional emails. I did leave my email on that sheet if anyone had additional input.
Thank you, Lexi. No, I did not either. Pastor Hayes, did you receive any additional communications from Rosalind or anyone else? I don't know if Eric can hear me. So,
I'm sorry, I can hear you, but I'm at my daughter's graduation. That's why I'm quiet.
Okay.
My
I'm sorry.
granddaughter's graduation.
Oh, congratulations.
No, thank you. I
What are
haven't
you
received
doing
anything.
here?
I know. I just I want to make sure we had a quorum, so I just snuck out the back and got on.
Thanks,
And I got-
appreciate it. You should
Well,
be
thank
at
you
your
so much.
graduation.
Yeah,
Okay,
go
no, excuse
go
me,
enjoy that. Yeah,
All right. Just want to make sure
Okay.
we had a quorum. Okay, thank you.
you bet. Bye. One other thing that was mentioned, in addition to Emerson, one other gentleman indicated that he went into a place in a local business district and felt unwelcome. And he said they stared at me like, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I'm 67 years old." And I felt as if they were just looking at me because I was Black. And so as Lexi said, it's here, it's out there, and we need to be aware of that. Another person mentioned that they had heard of, and they didn't give specific examples. And I think that this is what I would really like is stories, specific examples of when these things occurred, what occurred, all those kinds of things, to get as much information as we can. But somebody mentioned that some young people feel that they get hassled by the Webster Groves Police Department. So I'm curious as to why they feel that way.
And
you
Kevin,
know,
he specifically mentioned the Old Orchard area. I
right.
think. Yeah.
He did. And so I'm just, those are the kinds of things that we really need to hear from our community about, to find out what's going on here. Because if we can get to the bottom of it, so to speak, and try to address it, I think that we're all better off. So, but there is a concern out there. And if, you know, Emerson gave us a wonderful tour of the facility and all the wonderful work they do with the food bank. And I want to go back when I get clear. I want to go back and actually participate in that activity, because I think it's just a wonder. And I asked Rosalind, I said, do I need to be a member of North Webster to be a member of the Webster North Webster Coalition, Neighborhood Coalition? She said no. I said, okay. I live in South Webster, but I would love to become more involved in that coalition, because I think the more people that get involved in those types of wonderful community activities, the better off we are as a community. So it was a treat being there. Don't you agree, Lexi? I mean, and it was a fairly large turnout.
It was. Well, I've joined, so I'm a member and I live in North Webster. So yeah, I'm glad you liked my community meeting.
Yeah. But it was very, those are the kinds of things that we really wanted to do pre-COVID. And hopefully we'll be able to continue on. But I think Zoom is going to be forever in our lives, because I think, unfortunately, I think that the endemic now of Corona is going to be around us forever. So unfortunately, it's going to be out there just like the flu. So we just need to be responsible and deal with it appropriately. So any updates, Dale, from the police department?
Just a couple, and briefly. First thing, it's maybe speak just a little bit about the LPRs. We did discontinue the license plate readers, and those were the ones that were hardwired strictly around the car, 360 degrees. And the intent was to try and affect the disparate impact it had on minority communities and the lower economic community. And that is because what the LPRs do is, if there is a warrant or a wanted out for a vehicle, if it's a hit on the license plate, it tells the officer in the car that there's a warrant or a wanted on that car, and then they make the stop. They have the discretion to make an arrest or not make an arrest, but regardless, there's a stop made. Somebody is inconvenienced. We would hope, for the most part, unless there's extenuating circumstances, if it's somebody who has a traffic warrant or something that's minor, that the officer would just basically tell them, hey, you've got a warrant out, you need to get this taken care of because you can't get arrested, and we really wouldn't like to see that happen, and you need to get it taken care of. So anyway, we removed the LPRs with the hope that it would affect our traffic stop rate, for one thing, but also we felt it was probably the right thing to do because it was having a disparate impact on the minority community and on those the lower socioeconomic who can't afford, have difficulty affording to keep their license plates current, fix sitting equipment on their cars. What we're looking at now, and I've had a discussion with Dr. Peoples, and I'd like to have a discussion with the board here as well. The new generation of in-car video cameras that we're getting has the software that does allow for license plate reading without the 360-degree view on it, but it does have that capability both in the front and the rear. And the point that the person at the North Webster meeting made is a good one. It is a good tool if it's used appropriately. for something that's serious, and also for helping us track if we have a break-in of cars in the neighborhood or whatever, and we have license plate readers out, we can see what cars were there and be a good investigative tool to try and track that down. So what we're thinking about doing, it's not something that, I mean, it's something that's on the system, but we have to activate it for it to be used. So what we were thinking about is designing a policy where we don't react to hits on minor violation. If it's a warrant for traffic violation, if it's a warrant for an equipment violation, and an officer gets a hit, basically he ignores it. I'm not sure if we can, I don't know yet if we can shut that down just for those. We probably can't. But if we do get that, we would expect the officer to ignore that. But if we get a hit for a felony warrant, say it's an armed robbery or a stolen vehicle or something of that nature, then the officer can make the stop. And then we can also use the data that's collected. So if we have break-ins or problems in an area, that we can look at the readers and help that be an investigative tool. So that's something we're looking at. We're discussing. Like I said, I've talked to Dr. Peoples about it. I'd like to discuss it further with the board to get feelings from you, because again, we want to police like the community wants us to police. We want there to be confidence that we're using those kind of tools in a way that helps public safety and is not hurting people in the community who we really don't want to be affected by that. So that's just a briefly, comment on the LPRs. In conjunction with that, one of the reasons we discontinued the LPRs, we felt that it would help, again, not stop those cars where there's a disparate impact, and help lower our disparity rate on the annual vehicle report from the Attorney General. I don't have the final figures yet, but I did look at the preliminary figures. And as I've told the board on several occasions, I can't promise that we can reduce the rate. I can't promise it'll stay the same, and I can't promise it won't go up. There's a lot of factors that go into it. And one of the factors, unfortunately, is our population. I think I've related to most of the board the 20-year analysis that we did on it. Our percentages of stops in terms of minorities and white drivers really hasn't changed in 20 years. The thing that has changed and has brought and caused the disparity rate to go up where it is currently is that the minority population has decreased. In 2002, the population was 7.8%. Last year it was 3.8%. This year it's gone down again to 3.1%. Again, because of the formulas and the way that the numbers are, I can't, so I don't want to try and be exact with it. But I'm afraid that our disparity rate is probably going to go up again, primarily because the minority population has gone down, not because our stops have increased. So what I will do is, the report comes out on June the 1st. But what I will do is I'll assemble that data again for a 20-year analysis. I'll take a look at individual officers and the study from last year and the population and try and put together a package where you can see what the stops are. For instance, one of the important gauges is citizen complaints. And we are aware and acknowledge that there are some people, especially lower economic, who do not want to make complaints or afraid to make complaints. But even considering that, in 2020, we had 0 citizen complaints. Last year in 2021, we had 0 citizen complaints. I think that that's certainly a barometer that we should look at in terms of the kind of stops we're conducting and how we conduct stops that would help show that we're not doing things that would cause the public a big concern. Another part of it is, and again, I'll try to put this together with a package with the data analysis. What prompted the vehicle stop report to begin with was the fact, there was a consideration by many perspective that a lot of stops are being made driving while black as a pretext to make the stop to see if we could think officers could find anything wrong. The vast majority of our stops are for hazardous moving violations, and the vast majority of those are for radars or speeding stops. And that's one of the things that the community wants us to do. And the radar gun is colorblind. So that'll be a part of the package. We also were back on the highway a little bit more last year because we got grants. We had almost $35,000 in overtime grants from MoDOT last year. With COVID, the driving habits have gone way up. So we tried to be aggressive, a little more aggressive again on enforcement, which then going back on the highway, using those grants. This doesn't cost the city anything. We get a grant from MoDOT and from the Safety Center to pay officers overtime to go on the highway and enforce speeding especially. So those things combined, I'm afraid, that it's gonna raise our disparity rate a little bit, but I'm hopeful that with the data analysis and the other things that I can bring to the board, that it will help ease the perception about racial profiling. Again, it's not something we ignore, and we don't say that there's no reason to pay attention to the AG report, but you do have to remember that the formula they use is based upon residential population, not for the population that we stop. And last year, I didn't do the figures yet for this year, but last year less than 12% of the stops we made are rural residents. So in any case, I just wanted you to be aware of that, try and get out in front of it a little bit. So when the report comes out in June, you're probably going to see it. You're probably going to have questions about it. I will do my best to answer those questions and try and make the board as comfortable as possible about the perception of what officers doing and how we conduct stops. Yes, Lexi, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, you're muted.
You're muted, Lexi.
I recently saw a research, of course they bark now. I recently saw a research summary, Washington University faculty had done a huge wide scale study of traffic stops and racial disparities. And I'm going to see if I can find that and bring it in. The interesting thing that was brought up in the summary is that, you know, they did look at different measures of racial bias of individual officers or sort of cultural things, but they said the most consistent thing that they found is that in predominantly white neighborhoods, like over 85% to 90% and higher, that's where the disparities were highest. And so they didn't find a connection to necessarily racial bias with individual officers, that there's something more going on there. And so I was interested to read more of it. So I will bring it and share with anybody who's interested. And then the other thing that when you were bringing up the doing more patrolling on the highways, because I have seen those crazy drivers. I had one almost run me off the road recently. But I've also been seeing coverage about some of the high-speed chases that end up going into neighborhoods. And I'm so thankful I haven't heard about that happen in Webster Groves, but there've been so many in the wider community. And I have to wonder if people's sense of safety and their view of policing isn't affected not so much by individually the officers that they meet here in Webster Groves, but policing in general in our region. And sort of what is the PCEB's ability to address that, I guess. So it's more raising a question to the group.
Yeah, I mean, some of those chases, Chief Curtis, if I'm not wrong, they may start from a different jurisdiction and come into Webster Groves. And so it's not a Webster Groves police officer that's involved in that. So what are the protocols?
Well, we can't restrict pursuits coming into our community from another community.
Right.
The only thing that we can do, and that we do is that our policy strictly prohibits any pursuit that doesn't meet certain specific qualifications. The main one being that it has to be a felony where the either deadly force was used or there's a danger to the public if the pursuit, if the person was allowed to get away. Consequently, we have almost no pursuits. I mean, can't say specifically because I don't have the data in front of me, but we probably average less than 2 pursuits a year. And even those are sharp ones. Our officers just don't pursue because they don't meet the when they find someone that doesn't meet the qualifications of the policy. So either they stop it or the supervisor who's hearing it stops it. That's one of the things that's frustrating to the officers, but I know it's also frustrating to the community, and that is there have been several occasions. One of our biggest problems is, unfortunately, it's not huge, but it's a problem that our community and every community around us has, and that's car break-ins and car thefts. There have been several occasions where officers have been on the street and they've actually interrupted those kind of things. But what happens is if they get in the car, which they usually have close by, and they take off, and once they're exceeding the speed limit by any large degree, that's it. We do not chase under those circumstances. So it's frustrating for the officers, and I know it's a little frustrating for the community. But overall, again, we police like the community wants us to police, and we believe that what we've heard clearly from everyone is that it's more important to let somebody get away for a property crime than it is to cause a danger to somebody chasing them.
So I know that happened in my community. One of the individuals in the community was out in taking his dog for a walk, and it was very late at night, and he noticed a lot of people that were kind of doing the door checks on cars going down Elm. And so he got back and called the Webster Groves Police Department, and they showed up, and it was actually a car theft ring that was operating in that area, and they were able to stop it from occurring. So you know, I think that maybe Lexi, maybe the PCEB can emphasize how important it is for the community to communicate with the police department when they see something. And people are hesitant now. I mean, they really are. They're hesitant now to bring that up. It's kind of that I don't want to get involved. I don't want to make that phone call because I don't want to be involved, and they kind of turn their heads. And somehow we need to communicate that the Webster Groves Police Department is a safe place to call. That if you have something that's going on that you're even remotely concerned about, that you should make that call. You know, Paul, I mean, you know, some situations in your line of work with the mental health issues, if the police department actually goes to a place, we've talked to Chief Curtis, and the officers are all trained in that. But you know, how do they reach then out to a professional to come in and help take care of that situation? And I think that's something we need to look at too. Is how the Webster Groves Police Department specifically handles those situations. How are there any that occurred, and how was it handled, and how maybe could have it handled been better, or was it handled appropriately? You know, so
unless I'm misinterpreted, and I don't we'll put words in Lexi's mouth, and she can certainly correct me, but I felt maybe the question she had wasn't so much how we need to convince our community how we react, but rather kind of a macro view of police in general. The perspective is, you know, we can't enforce our policies on other departments. Can the PCEB affect other policing outside of Webster Groves? Was that what you were saying?
That's fine.
No, not really. I know we have no influence over how another, you know, municipality might choose to, you know, write their policies or enforce them or not. Just more having that awareness that we are in a macro situation, and that interactions with police, whether it's in Webster Groves or Greater St. Louis, or even when you're out of town, will affect people's perspective. And having that awareness as we pursue the work that we want to do, and having maybe some sensitivity to that might open up different ways or different things that we want to be sure to communicate.
okay. Yeah, I don't know how we can have that kind of influence outside of our community, but I totally get it.
Yeah.
I understand what the concern is. So thanks, Dale. I appreciate the update.
Thank you.
A quick update or discussion on some items. Lexi wanted to really start tackling, and I think I'd like to hear what Lexi has to say about this. But it may be I have an idea. So mapping of duties based on the revised ordinance. Lexi, go ahead and kind of let me know let us know what you think here.
So what I was thinking is I worked on that 2-sheet document to share with the North Webster Neighbor Coalition, that list of duties, and there's a lot of them, and communications that we've committed to. And it just occurred to me, as somebody that does a lot of project management professionally, that it would be wise for us to have a sense of, we've got a year ahead of us. What is on our list of things that we have signed up to do and accomplish, so that we can plan for getting those things done, you know, in a scheduled way, so that it doesn't ever become overwhelming. And also that we can have a sense of satisfaction that, hey, look, we got all this stuff done, or as much as we can at any rate. So I had the thought of going through the duties and identifying, you know, do we know what time of year we want to have, for example, the summary of activities that we present, or some of the others that are all enumerated in the ordinance. So that was my idea, is that if we could start pinning some, at least a month, that we're going to work on different things.
Yeah, I think that this may go over and above the capacity that we have in our regular monthly meetings.
Yep.
So I think that potentially, and I don't know, you know, I'm not the chairperson, but I think it's something that we can certainly talk to Katie, our chairperson, about. But we may want to have either a subcommittee potentially work on some of these items and then report back, or even we have had a work session in the past as well. And outside of the regularly scheduled meeting, had a work session, and maybe we can select one or two, put a date on it of when we want to accomplish it, and then start tackling those particular items. Find out when we're charged to complete that, and then how it's going to get completed. So I totally agree with you. There are lots of things on this list that and we're all volunteers, so you know, it needs to be reasonable in nature as well. So I totally agree. So maybe we can communicate. I mean, if you communicate by email on ideas with the Sunshine Law, make sure that you do you copy Katie Nakazono on those, so that it becomes a permanent part of the record in City Hall that was communicated. If you communicate with more than two other board members, but I think it's maybe something that we need to put on a specific item, maybe on an agenda, and that's what we try to focus on. Instead of focusing on a bunch of things on the agenda, focus on those one or two things that we want to accomplish, set up a date, and then start moving toward accomplishing it. You kind of, are you feeling the same way there, Lexi?
I feel like that there's so much that I think your idea is very good for some very top level things where we really should have the whole group being able to give input at the same time. But I think that a subcommittee could start to put together just a calendar for the consideration of the larger group. And I would be happy to do that with, you know, a collaborator, and see if that helps the group, you know, to accomplish more.
Emerson, on a sub, and this is where we come into advice, on a subcommittee that's doing work outside of our regularly monthly board meetings, how is that covered under Sunshine?
Just as long as you don't have a quorum to make decisions, you should be fine.
So no more than 3 should be on that subcommittee.
That's correct. Even the council this year, we're gonna be doing more subcommittees. We have one going now, but it's no more than 3 council people.
Okay.
Kevin, real quick, I was remiss in also not mentioning, the council has voted the PCB a budget for this coming fiscal year as well of $1,000. So I mean, it's not a lot of money, but you do have some funds there for some things that you, if you need to do, use that you are authorized to do it after July 1.
Do you know if we have any constraints on using tools like Google Sheets to be able to collaborate and share? Are there security concerns with that? My initial thought was I have a special Gmail account that I'm using just for PCEB. And I could use that same account and share with all the members. And so if there was another person or two that wanted to help create this calendar and then we wanted to share it in a larger group, are there any rules against that that you know of?
If you're emailing or sharing that sheet with the entire board or commission, just include Kate.
Okay,
So whatever go out, so that, and try to stay away from making decisions on there just for information.
okay.
Can they make a recommendation and then come back to the board at large to present that recommendation, and then the board would then approve it moving forward?
Yes, they can make
Okay.
recommendations. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay. The next item is the Webster University school year 2022-23. Scott, Dr. Gresh was going to talk to Webster University about that. Again, he is not on this meeting, so I'd like to table that for our next meeting, and we'll get a report from Scott at that point. The City of Webster Grove's landing page. Again, I'd like to add that as a future agenda item, or maybe even that is something that maybe a subcommittee could tackle. What do we want? What is the recommendation that we want to include on this landing page? What kind of information would we like to have included? What type of links would we like to have included besides what's already there? What kind of education would we like to provide the community on how to access it? Those are the kinds of things that I thought that a smaller group could try to tackle. Again, the same thought that Lexi has on that. Katie sent an email out. Let me find it. And she was in contact again with Jamie Mowers from the Webster Kirkwood Times. And Jamie enthusiastically wants to do a story or feature on the PCBE and has a writer for the story. So the writer has not contacted Katie as of yet, but they are very interested in doing a piece on the Police Community Engagement Board. So there'll be further information from Katie. And again, it's probably something that a couple of 2 or 3 people should work on to come up with that. And then, but I think it's important that be shared with the board at large before something actually goes to the Webster Kirkwood Times to be published.
I'll butt in this one time. I know I said I'll be quiet, but then this is just my opinion. The Times have become very toxic in their writing, and you need to be very careful. You tell them if you're going to let go of a blue balloon up in the air, next thing you know, it's striped with different colors.
Okay.
That's unfortunate, but especially the last campaign season, was just a very toxic paper.
Right. Well, in a prior position, I had to deal with the news media on occasion, and so yeah, Emerson, you're exactly correct. We have to be very careful and produce something, and that's why I wanted to produce something that the board and provide that to them, not an interview.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of my take, is that we provide them information to try to publish it, not do an interview. Because I think that's where we get into issues, is if somebody is being interviewed and they say something that, is taken out of context, and all of a sudden it becomes an untruth.
Just ask them for their questions in writing, and you'll get back with them with the answers.
Right. Yep. Very sound advice. And then Katie also said that it was on her personal agenda to contact MCU. Is that the ministerial?
Metropolitan
I think
Review.
that's Metro Congregations United.
Metro Concrete, okay. I wasn't sure what that was, but she was going to see about sharing our work with congregations in the Webster Groves area. And she seemed to remember at our last meeting that someone in attendance said they might have a contact for her. Does anyone have, it may have been Pastor Hayes, and he's enjoying his graduation, but do you have a contact, Lexi?
I do, and I can't think of their name, but I can go back to my Alliance emails and find who it was, because this gentleman is part of MCU and has solicited information from the Alliance.
I just got a chat from one of our guests. And so it's Metropolitan Congregation United, and a person that I won't name, but she knows who she is involved with them and can connect you. If you could send that information to Chief Curtis, and provide, or you can send it to me if you want, and I can provide it to Katie. My email is kspceb@gmail.com. And if you want to send me that information, I will get that to Katie. Thank you so much for someone. Yeah, let me put that in the chat.
Well, the pastor of our church is the chairman of the board of MCU. Wendy Brennan.
I don't think he heard you.
Kevin,
The pastor of our church is the chairperson of MCU.
Okay.
I know them. I know her real well.
Yeah, if you could get a hold of Katie and get her that that information. I just gave one of the attendees my email. So, but yeah, if you could maybe send an email to Katie Miller, the chairperson of the board.
Okay.
You should have her email. And that would help a lot for her to get in contact with them. Does anyone have any additional updates? Thank you, Chief Curtis. I was going to mention the $1,000 budget, but you beat me to the punch under additional comments. But I think that, we can decide at some point how we would like to use those funds and best use those funds, whether it be through an event or through tools that we can use to better do our work. So that's something that beginning in July we can start discussing. That's when the money is going to be available. So, all right. Do I have any other items?
Yeah, Kevin.
Centron.
Yeah, I spoke to a couple of members of this local scouting troop. I'm one of the scoutmasters.
Yep.
Yeah, and they are excited about the opportunity. Want to have maybe one of the officers come out and visit with them. But their next, they're on like summer break, so their next meetings won't start till August. So he just said to reach out to them in July, see if we can schedule something for August. And it's just kind of a meet and greet opportunity for officers to come and the scouts to communicate with them, and then still working on other spaces that we can find that are similar to that might be more inclusive demographic as well with that age group.
Where do they meet, Centron? I mean, is it a larger group or?
Yeah, I don't know the name of the church, but it's just up the street here.
Okay.
But it's in Webster, it's not far.
And yeah, and I wonder what they would be interested in hearing, or whether they, it would be more of a listening session where they could actually, the police officers could introduce themselves and maybe get to know some of the kids.
Yeah, they were open for whatever. So I think in terms of if we do it through a subcommittee or as a whole group, that we talk about what we would like for the officers to do there, what we'd like, what kind of interaction we'd like to be. And they were very flexible. They were looking forward to it and excited for the opportunity.
Now, excuse my ignorance on this, but what age groups are they? Generally?
From about 8 to 14, 15.
Okay, so we need to tailor it to that
Of course.
age group. So, and I bet you Chief Curtis has some police officers that are very interested in the youth, probably the ones that work in the high school, and even those that visit the grade schools might be a good fit.
I'm sure the SROs know quite a few of the Boy Scouts and the troop or whatever, but yeah,
The scout
they would
leaders.
be a good choice, Cam and Dixon, but also Paul and probably Kim King or Jillian. Any of those or all of those would be good choices to meet with them.
Yeah. Okay. So Centron, what I'd suggest is to send a note to Katie in advance of our next meeting, because it's probably something that we need to start talking about in June.
I did. I emailed her about it.
You know, okay, excellent. Okay. That way we can get it on the agenda and start mapping out a plan, because what happens a lot is all of a sudden the next month comes along and we haven't accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. So it just, we just need to try to stay on task. And that's hard to do for volunteers. So,
Sounds good.
all right, any other business? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
If I could say so moved, I would say it.
Emerson, I can't help you.
Centron moves to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I think.
Paul second.
Paul.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Good
All
night.
right.
Okay, thanks,
Good night.
Dr. Scott.
Thank you.
Lexi, Kevin, thanks.
Good night.